An anniversary marking independence that comes with a new security law being imposed by Beijing. Hong Kong marks 23 years of freedom from colonial Britain, with concerns among many for the erosion of freedom in the city today. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that as of today he can move forward with the annexation of parts of the West Bank, parts of a proposal of a US plan for peace in the Middle East, but regional players that say that such a move would only increase tension. And not at all yet under control, and the country could see cases double in number. Leading health authority in the US, Anthony Fauci, sounding the alarm as the number of fatalities in the last 24-hour tally there reaches over 1,000 people. Hello and a very warm welcome to you. I'm Eve Irvine. Glad you could join us. Well, from today on, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that he can begin implementing parts of a US plan for peace in the Middle East, though it's not expected to happen immediately. It's a plan that is far from being accepted by all players in the region and includes the annexation of parts of the occupied West Bank, which would likely increase regional tensions. Today, some 450,000 Israelis live in settlements considered illegal under international law. Alexander Olcott tells us more.
Following months of talks, the administrations of Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump are yet to agree on the map spelling out exactly which parts of this narrow, hilly region will be annexed by Israel. And as the discussions continue with the White House envoy and the US ambassador, it's looking like the July the 1st start date will be missed.
דיברתי על שאלת הריבונות שאנחנו עובדים עליה בימים אלה ונמשיך לעבוד עליה בימים הקרובים.
The West Bank has been under Israeli control for more than half a century. By most interpretations of international law, Israeli settlements on it are deemed illegal. Netanyahu desperately wishes to be the leader who makes Israel's claim to the territories permanent, along with the strategically important Jordan Valley. Donald Trump's pro-Israel administration has given him the unique opportunity to pursue this, but the clock is ticking, as Netanyahu knows the US president could be out of office within months if he fails to secure re-election. The US, meanwhile, wants Israeli politicians to agree between themselves where the map should be drawn. But for Netanyahu's coalition partner, Benny Gantz, the annexation is not a priority during the global pandemic.
וביחד נתמודד עם ההשלכות הכלכליות והחברתיות של התופעה הרפואית הזו. מה שאינו קשור בקורונה יחכה לימים של אחרי הווירוס.
While the annexation is defended by Netanyahu on security and religious grounds, it will also cause major problems for Israel. It will no doubt spark renewed violence from those who see the West Bank as the heart of a future Palestinian state. It will also cause diplomatic issues around the world, as aside from the Trump administration, almost everyone, including the United Nations, the Arab League and the European Union, are against it.
Well, this day, 23 years ago, Hong Kong was handed back from UK control to China under that now infamous one country, two systems deal, which gave the city 50 years of promised freedom. Not even halfway there, and fears are growing that that freedom is being seriously eroded. This Wednesday also marking the application of a new national security law imposed by Beijing, one that, among other things, bans any activity deemed secessionist. To get the latest, we can cross to our correspondent there, Oliver Farry. Oliver, firstly, tell us how people are feeling around you today, the anniversary of freedom and at the same time the first day that this new law comes into effect.
Well, it's very much a gloomy city today. There's a big foreboding among a lot of people, particularly those in the pro-democracy camp. Yesterday evening, we saw an awful lot of people closing down their Twitter accounts, and even some high-profile pro-democracy figures asking all the journalists they had been in contact with to delete chat histories to protect them. Clearly, some people feel that they are targets under the new law, and the law is so all-embracing and comprehensive, and actually very vague in parts, that an awful lot of people feel that it's almost impossible not to fall foul of it. Even today, the Hong Kong police, who have a fairly heavy presence on the street here in Causeway Bay, have been carrying new flags purple ones, which haven't been seen before, which warn people in both English and Chinese that they are chanting, that they're using slogans that may actually be an infraction of the law, which could lead to arrest and prosecution.
And now, of course, Oliver, July 1st often sees quite sizable demonstrations in Hong Kong as people mark that anniversary. Protests, though, under that new law seem to be, at least in question. Tell us more about what the law does prevent and the international impact as well that law could have.
Well, the law tackles four particular things that Beijing and the Hong Kong government claimed had been pillars of the protest last summer. Now, this is actually quite imaginary and exaggerated in most cases. One is secession. Only 11% of Hong Kongers support Hong Kong independence. Another is subversion. Another is terrorism. And the fourth is collusion with foreign powers. There are worries among a lot of people, particularly people who have contacts with foreign political parties or NGOs, that they could fall foul of the law. And also, terrorism has now been given an incredibly broad reach, so that if you're involved in vandalism of, for instance, public transport, which was the case in a lot of the protests last year, you can be indicted on terrorism charges, facing potentially life in prison. So people are genuinely worried. There has been a fairly muted response so far from most of the international community. There has been, EU, for instance, said they deplored the law, but it's not a particularly strong condemnation. But Beijing, which today said that foreign countries should mind their own business regarding the law, might actually have more on their hands, because one of the provisions of the law allows Beijing to indict people who are actually not Hong Kong or Chinese citizens and who are living abroad. So foreign governments may actually perk up a little bit when they realise that this is part of the law.
OK, Oliver Farry from a very noisy and busy Hong Kong city centre. Thanks indeed for that. Well, now, over 1,000 dead in just one day. The US recording its highest number of fatalities from COVID-19 in a number of weeks, with more than 40,000 new cases confirmed across the country. Many states have decided to pull the brakes on reopening. Texas, for one, as it reported almost 7,000 new patients on Tuesday alone, its highest daily tally yet. For Anthony Fauci, the country is clearly not in control of the crisis. Erna Gunke reports.
As much of Western Europe continues lifting lockdown measures, even preparing to welcome tourists, the United States continues taking steps backwards. The country's top infectious disease specialist has warned the U.S. is far from bringing the coronavirus under control and could even see record surges in daily cases.
We are now having 40,000+ new cases a day. I would not be surprised if we go up to 100,000 a day if this does not turn around, and so I am very concerned.
More than half of the 50 states have seen a rise in cases, with 16 of them forced to either pause plans to reopen or reimpose restrictions. Among the worst hit, Arizona, California, Florida, and Texas, which account for half of new infections. On Tuesday, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut added 8 more states to their travel advisory list, requiring any travelers from those states to quarantine for 14 days. Meanwhile, Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden assailed President Trump's handling of the pandemic, accusing him of simply surrendering to the virus.
The COVID-19 is still here, and the daily threat to American health and prosperity is continuing. It didn't have to be this way. Month after month, as other leaders in other countries took the necessary steps to get the virus under control, Donald Trump failed us.
People outside of the United States, too, are likely to suffer from the country's failure to contain the virus. Despite a desperate need for tourism revenue, the European Union has extended its travel ban on American tourists, some 15 million of whom usually visit the continent each year, mostly in the summer.
Well, also reporting an ongoing upward trend, Brazil recording over 1,000 fatalities from COVID-19 on Tuesday alone. And 33,000 new cases overall. President Jair Bolsonaro has played down the potency of the virus since the beginning, saying that the cost of a lockdown to the economy was simply too great. He has now extended an emergency monthly stipend of just over $100 for the next 2 months to help some of the workers in the country. Well, Italy, of course, one of the hardest hit when it comes to COVID-19. Currently, it is largely under control there, with 142 new cases reported in its last 24-hour tally. Some of the most recent cases have been recorded in a small northern town of Naples, a hotspot found in a complex that houses foreign agricultural workers. Some 700 people had been ordered to stay indoors there, but not everyone complied, leading to tension. A situation our correspondent tells us that is being exploited by the far right for political gain.
This area is under strict surveillance, not just by the police. Even the army has been deployed to enforce the lockdown. Last week, a new outbreak of coronavirus was discovered in these illegally occupied buildings. There are already more than 60 positive cases.
Noi dobbiamo mantenere in isolamento rigoroso le 5 palazzine. Isolamento rigoroso significa che per 15 giorni non deve uscire e non deve entrare nessuno.
Despite the regional ruling, some people did not respect the lockdown, causing outrage among the locals and tensions between different communities, because most of the people living in these buildings are Bulgarians working in the agricultural sector.
Gente che urina a terra, che butta carte, che ci sta vetro, cioè le donne e le ragazze hanno paura di passare sotto questi palazzi.
Non si comportano al modo italiano, si comportano come animali.
Barely dissimulated racism that the Italian right wing is exploiting. This afternoon, Matteo Salvini, the leader of the League, has decided to visit. His arrival provoked tensions. A crowd of protesters was waiting for him. They are denouncing his use of the situation for political gain.
Salvini, invece di fomentare la guerra tra poveri qui al sud, non abbiamo bisogno di sciacalli.
Perché siamo in campagna elettorale, perché adesso ci saranno le regionali e quindi, come si dice qua a Mondragone, tutti verranno a fare i galli sulla mondezza.
A few meters away, his followers welcome him.
Tanti italiani per bene ci chiedono di esserci. Il diritto al lavoro, il diritto alla salute, il diritto alla sicurezza che vanno tutelati. Evidentemente c'è il braccio armato della camorra che prevede che in campagna sia meglio l'illegalità rispetto al cambiamento.
A huge testing campaign has been launched, and the governor has already declared that the entire city would be locked down should the virus continue to spread.
Let's take a look now at some other news in brief. One person died in largely peaceful protests in Sudan. Tens of thousands of people took to the streets to push for faster reform and greater civilian rule in the country. It was the biggest demonstration since a transitional government took over late last year, following the ouster of ruler Omar al-Bashir, who had been in power for 3 decades. Last day of voting on constitutional changes in Russia. The ballot has been open since last week on proposals that have already been passed by Parliament. But Vladimir Putin was hoping to get a public rubber stamp of approval on the reforms, which include an effective ban on gay marriage and a guaranteed minimum pension. A change of flag in the southern US state of Mississippi. Lawmakers there deciding to remove the Confederate battle standard from it. Mississippi was the last state to still have the racist symbol on its flag. Georgia changing it in 2003. Well, after a 40% dive in its €55 billion jet industry, Airbus is cutting costs, with some 15,000 jobs to go within the next year, 1/3 of them from France. The company will face tough talks with governments and trade unions, which have promised to fight compulsory redundancies.
It's a cold shower for Airbus employees. The European aeronautics giant is scaling back. 15,000 jobs are to go across the European Union, 1/3 of them in France, and more than 10% of the company's total staff. At its Toulouse headquarters, workers were asking questions about the future.
Il y a beaucoup de on-dit, mais bon, oui, c'est sûr, c'est inquiétant, mais bon.
Je suis inquiet et j'espère que les suppressions de postes ne concerneront que des gens qui sont proches de la retraite.
Airbus hasn't yet said how the cuts will be made, and unions fear the possibility of staff being forced out.
Il est hors de question qu'il y ait des mesures de licenciement contraint. C'est notre objectif et on va tout faire pour y arriver.
The coronavirus pandemic has left the company scaling back manufacture by 40%, with aircraft grounded worldwide. For bosses, it's a bitter decision, but as CEO Guillaume Faury said, it was about the necessary adaptation to a massive fall in production and guaranteeing the firm's future. However, it goes even further than Airbus, with around 12,000 suppliers taking a knock-on hit. Most of those are small and medium-sized businesses.
Il va falloir être attentif, au-delà d'Airbus, à la sauvegarde de toute la filière aéronautique. Derrière Airbus, c'est des gros équipementiers qui sont fournisseurs, c'est aussi des PME en France et en Europe, et celles-là sont plus fragiles qu'Airbus. Or, Airbus, dans la durée, doit maintenir en vie ses fournisseurs pour pouvoir s'appuyer sur eux à moyen terme.
Exactly how Airbus intends to restructure should be revealed on Thursday, during a committee meeting at its headquarters.
Okay, well, that wraps it up for this edition. Do take care.